Hey, what's good? What's going on? It's Ancestry. I'm back today, bringing you guys some more fun. So recently we've looked at the comparison of what guns with the U.S. and Great Britain, and just several connections. I really find the British interesting, and I guess that's why I have so many subs from that area. Probably because I watch so many of their videos. But I want to keep that going. So today I decided to watch, it's a channel called Lost in the Pond, and it's a video called Four Ways British and American People Are Very Different. Uh, it's only four ways, but it's like a 10-minute video, so he's got to go into detail about it. Uh, that being said, he might be a comedian. He kind of looks like it. I don't know, maybe I'm just judging. But anyway, I hope you guys dig it, and if you're new to the channel, hit that sub button, hit that like button, help me out. I'm trying to reach 2K subs. I'm almost there. Alright, let's get watching, alright?
But in America, or at least in the Midwest, my attempts at toilet humour have often been met with TMI, which to my chagrin does
Too
not
much information.
tickle me insane, but too much information. Hello, I'm Lawrence, and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to people. What could be more important to the foundation of a country than its people, except maybe tectonics? And one thing I can say about British people is we don't generalise, and that's why I'm doing a video called Ways British and American People Are Very Different. Believe you me,
That's gotta be a joke, come on.
everything you hear in this video is absolutely true, except this sentence. Because in truth, it's impossible to get this video right. Both countries are made up of millions of people.
True.
No
Very
one
different.
person is the
It's just
same.
stereotypes.
Some of the generalizations I'm about to make about Americans could be true of some British people, and vice versa. It's just that on the whole, pound for pound or dollar for dollar, there are certain things that separate British people from Americans. And having lived in both countries now for at least 100 years, I'm here to tell you what those things are. Here are
This
four
guy's
ways
very
that
dry.
British and American people are very, very different.
Alright.
Funnily enough,
What do you
the
mean
first
Ancestry?
entry on this list doesn't require any generalizations because it's backed
Oh,
by
I
hardcore
guess.
science. And by science,
No, that makes perfect sense, because sure, we may have had, a lot of British people that came here, but I mean, we have a lot of other countries that mixed in. I mean, it was kind of a mixing pot.
I mean the census. Both countries have them. And from this data we can determine the cultural backgrounds that make up the people of Britain and America. Let's take a look at each country's top 5 ancestral groups, starting with Britain. Actually,
Okay.
in this case, the entire UK. 37% of us are Anglo-Saxon, which accounts for how I'm
Really, a
1,500
third?
years old. 22% of people living in the UK are of Irish descent. And this is not just the people living in Northern Ireland. Irish immigrants have been coming to Britain for hundreds of years, and if they hadn't, we wouldn't have had John, Paul and George, and the Beatles might have been named Ringo. A fifth of people living in Britain claim Western European ancestry. 9%, and I believe this minutely includes yours truly, come from a Scandinavian background, which is definitely
I could
why
see
I'm
that.
so good at assembling IKEA furniture. 4% of people in Britain trace their ancestry to Pakistan and India. In America, the numbers are quite
makes
different.
sense.
There are some
As a
surprises
colony,
along
know.
the way. Did you know that in the United States of America, the largest ancestral group... Ancestral? I just said ancestral. Which
Very
is
different.
thankfully not a word, but you can quite imagine what it would mean. In the United States, the largest ancestral group is German, apparently. 13.6%
Really?
of Americans self-report German ancestry. And if you think that that dates back to either of the world wars, that's not entirely accurate.
I could see that.
The majority of German Americans came here
Army
in the
wives?
19th century. So if you
Okay.
encounter any Americans with German sensibilities or facial structure, whatever that means, then that's why. And there's a good chance...
Here's the interesting part. Wow. Okay, so Minnesota has a lot of West African people too, believe it or not, even though it gets all snowy up there. The interesting part is around my area up here in Washington, there are a lot of German people, and it's because I live so close to a military base, and at the time, the people that were stationed at that army base, almost all of them got sent to Germany, and they all came back with German wives. So that's why there's so many older German women married to military men, and then all their descendants stayed in the area.
chance you'll encounter a German American in one of the cold states like Minnesota, Wisconsin, or the Dakotas. The second largest ancestral group in the United States are African Americans.
I could see that.
They comprise about 12.5%.
I'm surprised German
of
is
the
more.
population. And conversely to the German ancestry groups, the highest concentration of African
In the
Americans
South, that makes
is
sense.
in the South. And historically, of course, this is largely tied to the fact that many African Americans in the South are descendants of slaves that were kept and later freed
From slavery, yeah. But here is something interesting. So we know, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, they all had tons of slaves. Just a ridiculous amount. Louisiana, all that. Tennessee right here. So I have a lot of family that lives right here in Memphis, right on the edge of Arkansas. And it's my African Americans, my black side of the family. And it's just interesting because you cross through Tennessee and you get here in the middle, and it's kind of split, a little more so. And then you get up here, and it really is separated because you get up into the northeastern part of Tennessee, and you see a significantly higher percentage of white people. And then, of course, everybody knows Maine's white, Minnesota's white, all that. It really is night and day, the South compared to the North. I mean, up here in Washington, it doesn't show it, but we're in the Northwest. I think it's only like 11% of the state is African American or something like that.
plantations there. And here's a demographic that sets America apart from Britain. It's largely governed by geography, and that's Mexican Americans. 11% of Americans self-reported Mexican ancestry.
I could see that.
Might account for why I read the
Well,
other day
Hispanic.
that Cinco de Mayo is more widely celebrated in the United States than it is in Mexico.
True.
Mind you might be able to say something similar about St. Patrick's Day. Every month,
True.
without fail, Americans turn green. Not literally, unless they've had...
We dress in green and we drink.
And so it's no coincidence that 10% of Americans self-report Irish ancestry. Of course, if you're like me and you're 1,500 years old and an Anglo-Saxon, there's a very good chance that some Americans will be quick to tell you that they have a little bit of you in them. Not like that. I just mean a little bit of English, right? 7% of Americans self-reported English ancestry. That was an abbreviated look at the ancestral makeup of both countries, and for not having the time to discuss all groups in this one video, I apologise. But then that would probably be very British of me. Let's take a look at some of the unique tendencies of the people of both countries. If there's one thing...
Politeness?
Really...
Alright, I have no idea, but I'm just going to throw this out there. Several of my British viewers made fun of the fact that Americans say yes sir, yes ma'am. In general, I think that we're pretty dang polite. It really all depends on where you are. Again, it's not everywhere, but if you're in New York or something, people, or the East Coast, they tend to be a little bit more aggressive. The West Coast are a little more passive-aggressive, the kind of South and everything like that, they tend to be a little nicer, more friendly to you. But I don't know. I think we won that one.
It's how polite they are and how fun they are at parties. And don't worry, I'm not about to extol the virtues of the famed British politeness while asserting that Americans are rude, because that's not my experience. There are rude people in both countries, but that rudeness usually manifests in a very similar way and wouldn't make for a very entertaining video. Actually, it might. Can we put it on the list? The truth is, people in both countries know how to be polite when they want to. The difference here is the manner in which they do it. In my experience, British people will go to greater lengths to let you know that they're listening. What do I mean by this? Well, you're talking to me. Not literally, you're watching a video. But
yeah, I'm just going to lock eyes,
You're conveying very important information right now. And so in between every single word, I'm going to go, yes, 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 yeah.
Oh, that's annoying.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Stop now. That's essentially the way it goes. As a result, the conversation ends up being twice as long, and all of those efforts to display that you were listening meant that you didn't hear a bloody thing. British people are very good at that, and I should know, because I'm very good at that, aren't I? But we're also good at adding on tag questions. That's when we make a statement, but in order to not appear confrontational, we add on a little question at the end. So, for example, Marmite is brilliant, isn't it? Americans would never do that. They'd simply state, Marmite is awesome. That's never going to happen. I remember when I visited Home last year, and we were in a restaurant, and the staff apologized profusely to my wife because I can't remember why. I remember it not being warranted in the least. The point is, British politeness is often governed by the need to save face. That's not a reference to the A-Team.
Interesting.
Don't get me wrong, it's also about being friendly, but in America, I think that's all it's about. I very rarely feel like Americans are trying to let me down gently. They just tell me I suck outright. I'm joking. It could be argued that Americans in this sense are just more practical, much like their dress sense.
Fashion.
It's hard to talk about people without talking about the clothes they wear. For example,
Do we really? Is it really that different between British dressing and American?
when have you ever seen me without clothes? No, those videos were taken down about 4 years ago. Not by me, but
We're not naked.
On the other hand, it's almost impossible to paint an accurate picture of the clothing choices of both countries' populations. But there are some clothing items you'll see preventing people being naked in one country and not the other. That was really poorly worded. So in America, people might, for example, be recognizable by the fact that they're wearing a flannel shirt, particularly in some of the northern states which have extreme cold and
It's actually what I have on right now. It's true. That's one of the things that Washington, Oregon, a lot of northern states are known for is we always have our flannels on.
Germans. Moreover,
And I'm
Americans
German.
are more likely to wear sweatpants in public. The
Oh,
sweatpants
gross.
people, which
That's
is an
lazy.
Ancestry group that I forgot to mention, sometimes meet up at the gym, but more often Walmart. In Britain, we all just dress like Charlie Chaplin. At least the Charlie Chaplin impersonators do, but there's an emphasis in Britain on style. And this is a luxury that we can afford because, unlike America, we don't have weather that can kill bacteria. So depending on where you are, it might not be that unusual to see, say, a woman dressed more or less like Kate Middleton, and that includes Kate Middleton. Of course, we're talking cheaper versions of Kate Middleton's wardrobe, or at least I am. Now, before I get carried away, I do not want you to get the impression that all British people are super stylish, right? I'm doing this video in my underpants. The thing I would say is that our casual clothes or our comfort clothes tend to be less baggy than they are in the United States, and we probably wear fewer baseball caps and more polo shirts. I told you British people like me don't like to generalize. I think in America baggy clothes are more accepted because A, there are harsh winters, and B, Americans place more emphasis, I think, on comfort. That's why you'll see Americans way into their 70s still wearing sneakers with jeans. My grandfather-in-law did that all the time. I think we saw it in Britain.
That's a question I have for you guys, my British viewers right now. What's wrong with wearing sneakers and jeans? I have my cousin Roosevelt down in Tennessee, and I mean he's up there, you know. God, I feel bad. I don't know how old he is. 70 something, I think, maybe 60 something. Sorry, cousin. Anyway, and he wears jeans with tennis shoes or sneakers all the time. That's just normal, I feel like.
That person would be considered eccentric. Which,
Really?
We're talking about Britain. 50% of the population is eccentric. And if you thought that that observation was funny, then you're very easily amused.
Humor. Oh. Humor. God, don't get on me about the U. I understand. I've read all your comments. Color, it's spelled with a U. Harbor, it's spelled with a U. Humor, it's spelled with a U. I understand.
Especially if you're British. You may recall a while
2
back
years
I
on
did
the
a
last
video
one.
on British versus American humour, but this focused on the televisual differences. Today, we're talking about people. There have been numerous times in my life when I've laughed my absolute arse off in the company of both Brits and Americans, to the extent that I can no longer comfortably sit down. But it's hard to deny that British people have a different sense of humour to American people. It's also a little hard to define what that difference is. Americans often write in the comments that they love my dry British humour, and I always find it amusing that we have dry British humour, because we also have wet British forecasts. But when you're talking to a British person, there are two ways that the humour can go. Either that politeness that we talked about earlier goes out of the window and gets rained on, or there arises something known as self-deprecation. In the first instance, a good friend of mine might jokingly remark, "All right, Lawrence, you wanker." I don't know too many Cockney people. Or in the second case of self-deprecation, a British person might say something like, "I'm Lawrence and I'm a big wanker." That is a terrible example. It's basically when people put themselves down for a comedic effect. It's a powerful tool, but it's not a tool often wielded by Americans who, I don't know, maybe they see it as a weakness. I've also found that Americans are less into their toilet humour, and that maybe that means they're more mature. It does mean that, doesn't it? The sweatpant people notwithstanding.
No, we have
Toilet
tons of
humour is
toilet
basically
humor.
how British people communicate. Of course, this was once successfully parodied by Mike Myers, the comedian, not the serial killer. But in America, or at least in the Midwest, my attempts at toilet humour have often been met with TMI.
To be fair, you're in the Midwest. The Midwest is like, I mean, it's Minnesota, you know? It's super nice, good to earth, fun-loving people. Like, I mean, it's Minnesota. It's there's very few parts of the Midwest that are generally, and not everybody, but generally not like just very PG, I guess. There's Chicago, you know, there's a few other places. Hell, even Indianapolis is not like that very much, but a lot of it's, yeah, I wouldn't want to live there.
Which, to my chagrin, does not mean tickle me insane, but too much information. On the other hand, I think your average American is pretty good at wielding observational humour. A favourite weather-related saying, and I've heard this in various states, is, if you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes. And they've got a point.
I love that. People say that all the time here in Washington. Or they'll say, yeah, you know, Washington weather, it's bipolar. I mean, whoops. I mean, the other day, it was sunny when I came into work. I forgot my keys. I forgot my phone, I mean. I ran back out, and the sun was, like, peeking through the clouds, and then later on it was storming. That night, I had some ice on my freaking windshield. Like, it's ridiculous. It really is.
Hanging outside this morning. Tornado took it away. That's it for this episode. Let me know in the comments below if you've observed some of these characteristics of British and American people.
I would like to hear what you guys have to say on this, especially the British people and other Americans. Like, what do you guys think of this? Let me know. But yeah, hope y'all dug it. Till next time, this is Aces High, and I'm out.